2017, and this is the meeting of the North Kingstown School Committee. Tonight we are having a business meeting, and so I will start by asking everyone to please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our clerk is absent this evening, so I'm going to call our roll. So I'll start Gregory Blaswell here. Jennifer Hoskins? Here. Bob Jones? Here. Sheila McGovern? Here. Raina Stevens? Here. Jamestown Representative? Here. And student representatives? Here. Thank you, folks. I do not have our calendar. I don't know if anyone... okay. I didn't think to print it, so that's a note. That's okay. Did you? Okay. Let's see if I can.
No, that's different. This is the upcoming things.
You have it? Okay, here we go. So I will call our calendar. So on Monday, April 3rd, there is a CLAC meeting at 6:30 p.m. at Davisville Academy. Tuesday, April 11th, there's a school committee business meeting at 7 p.m. Friday, April 14th is Good Friday. All schools are closed and the administrative offices are open. Monday, April 17th through Friday, April 21st is spring break. All schools are closed and the administrative offices are open. And Tuesday, April 28th is a school committee business meeting at 7 p.m. Oh, and right, and April 10th is the joint meeting with the Town Council and School Committee on the school budget. Public hearing, right? Correct. The public hearing. So members of the public are encouraged to attend and make comments on the upcoming budget, both for the town and school budgets. So next on our agenda, and I'll just remind people, there's a sign-up list for when we get to it for citizens' comments if anyone wants to sign up at the rear of the room. Our first presentation is on the North Kingston High School's revised scheduling. Thank you.
Do I need to stand in front of
the microphone will pick it up better if you do.
If you stand
behind the podium. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm a mover, so I'll try to stay here.
And a shaker.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I'm appreciative of the people, and I don't know if you're here for the schedule, but I do appreciate it if you are. I'm here with Denise Mancier. I'm the principal of North Kingstown High School, and we've been working over the past almost 2 years, a year and a half to 2 years. Before we begin, I'd like to publicly thank Dave Avadija. I have not done this for you yet. And together, the administration and the teachers union has worked on revising our schedule at the high school. And I think it's really important that I say thank you publicly because of the nights and the weekends and the texts and the emails back and forth that we've done to try to gather everybody, all the stakeholders, and to get them to where we need to be. And I feel like this particular schedule is a great thing for students and for teachers and for the parents of the community. So it wasn't about any one particular faction, but it definitely came together, and because we've been working on it for quite some time now, it's really seeming to blend. And so wherever we go to present, whether it's the PTSO or the teachers during their common planning times, Mr. Avadija has been either by my side or actually alone representing this whole scheduling committee. So thank you very much.
I appreciate those little warm ones too.
Okay, so we're starting off with Simon Sinek in the Golden Circle. For those of you that don't know him, he really has this best-selling book, and since I have been the principal at the high school, I often go to the beginning of everything about why we're doing what we're doing. And he says a lot of companies out there, they know what they do, and they even know how they do it, but often they cannot succinctly say why they're doing something. And those companies that can do that often have the most success. So before we do anything in the high school, we try to say why we're going to do it. So our why. North King. So there's our mission statement, our little mantra up there: educate, inspire, and challenge. And of course, we know that's for the entire district, but we take that literally at the high school. And so our original why are our kids, all the students that are in the high school. Everything that we think about is always revolves around like something not working for the students, and then we start having discussions about it, and it just kind of bubbles out. So that was our original why. And then we have, for those of you that don't know, a NEASC visit every 10 years. It's the New England Association for Schools and Colleges, and they come into our building often like they do for colleges as well, and they take a look at everything that's going on. And there are multiple standards that we have to do, and we have committees that work with them. But the three that really hit home for this particular thing are school resources for learning, and that's just about our directed interventions for all students. Our school culture and leadership, which talks about the time and support for teachers and their collaboration. And then finally, at the bottom, the culture at North Kingstown High School reflects our core values, beliefs, in 21st century learning. And that really goes through everything we always do. It's very important to us. So I thought we would share that to you so you know from where we're getting some of our information. Additional-wise, we've been talking about personalization now for a couple of years as well. It's really hit home this year with RIDE jumping on board with a lot of different things that we're able to do. So some of the things that did come up are the CTE. The last couple of years we've been promoting our CTE, and what we found out is that students that are in our band and want to take a world language and other electives and the CTE electives have a difficult time fitting them all in. Yet we're offering the career and technical education programs in engineering and also in finance. And we're hoping to start one in IT very shortly. So in order to be able to do that and have an equitable program, you want to make sure there's some personalization in there and how we can make that happen for everybody. Again, we have individualized learning plans. We have a 5th period right now that's 45 minutes every day, and then coming up on a slide very soon, I'll show you where that lands. So it's a 45-minute block versus our 90-minute blocks, and they're not always equal. Do you want to say that?
Yeah, they're not always equitable. I think if any of you have students at the high school, they'll tell you period 5, while it does equal 90 minutes over 2 days, be in the last period every day. And for the teachers who are by the buses like myself, when the kids hear those buses, at 1:20, that's the end of the school day to them, right? So period 5 is not the same as all the other periods, and it doesn't get hit for testing like the period 3 classes do. So it's always different, and the kids nod their head, yes, it's always very different than the other class. It's really not equitable, so we're trying to straighten that issue out too.
And then moving right along, RIDE has, they allow students to graduate in 3 years now. Students have been going to the early start programs at TCRI or Johnson & Wales, but now this has been another thing that if you can figure out your courses and get and you graduate early, so that's through RIDE. We also have the advanced level course conflicts, so that just means if students, as they're starting to take a lot of AP classes towards the end and trying to do band, and with the 7 slots versus 8 slots, sometimes a lot of things there's some kind of course conflicts. Older students who are not engaged, we'd like to try to help them to pursue some internships. And also there's a social emotional learning opportunities that's increasing every year, and we need to figure out another way to get some social emotional supports in the building. So contract negotiations were 2016, as you all know, and in the contract negotiations it came out that we would have 2 faculty meetings between the administration and the teachers, and we'd get together and discuss scheduling options and then try to keep within the current budget. And then based on the discussions, bring forth any items that would affect it. So really what we tried to do is we tried to say, okay, we're going to just keep things as is, and what can we do within the confines of our current budget and hours of the day, things like that. And really what it looks like is the only effect right now for the budget could be when it comes to internships, because right now we have 1 coordinator for just 1 period a day, and she has over 30 students that she's already working with. So that might be an area if we want to try to help other students get out, 4th hour, 5th hour, we'd be able to take a look there. Okay? So, sample of meetings to study the issue. I'm actually going to let Dave talk a little bit about this because there was quite a bit that we did that he did.
All right, so back in November of 2015, it was probably one of the most productive conversations that we had. We met in the band room, and it was kind of like, well, who wants to show up and talk about scheduling? And probably about half the staff showed up. And it started off talking about period 5 and inequities in that and what we didn't like. And from there, we just kind of brainstormed a list of ideas. about the schedule, what we did and did not like, and what other schools were doing, because as you know, many of the other staff members live in other districts, and they know what those districts are doing. So, we're always constantly pulling ideas from other districts without actually having to go and visit them. So that Denise kind of just wrote all those ideas down on a piece of paper, and it kind of like laid there for a little while until the rest of these meetings started happening, where some teachers would go to other school districts, and at first we kind of thought maybe Coventry would work for us. And after going to Coventry and bringing the schedule back and kicking it around a little bit, we decided, we don't quite like that schedule and how it would apply here. And then teachers went to New Hampshire, and they went to Narragansett, and we were supposed to go to Portsmouth, and it ended up being a snow day. But I will say the schedule that you have in front of you in that packet is really a combination of Portsmouth High School and Narragansett. We took both of their schedules, and we kind of put them together, and we kind of worked through it with the faculty and parents and students. Dave Lopes and myself went before the Student Senate, and we talked to the kids there to get feedback from them and what they liked and what they didn't like. And we sat there and we listened to their ideas and brought it back. We also met, as Denise said, we met in a focus group. And what we found with the focus group was we had a large number of staff members in the focus group and started going all over the place. And then we brought it back down with a few teachers just by coincidence. I was walking down the hallway next to Brian McDonald and Dave Lopes, and we started talking schedule. Next thing you know, we're in an empty classroom on scrap paper again, writing down ideas as we're walking by and trying to figure stuff out. And then we reworked the schedule, and I would send Denise, say, some ideas, and then she would get some ideas at 4 o'clock in the morning and send them back to me, right? And then I'd be at the gym, I'd be texting her at 5 a.m. back some crazy ideas. And after each time we put some ideas together, we go back and meet with different groups, and eventually bring more and more people in and say, well, now can we schedule this? And that's what you see down the bottom. Is it even possible to schedule something like this? And that's what that happened a few months ago, and they're currently working on now. At the same time, I would go around and meet with all the different departments, and we see CPT meetings there. I'd go around and meet with English, I would meet with history, I would meet with math, and I'd just go around the building when they had common planning time. What do you like? What do you want in the schedule? How does this impact you? Because sometimes the schedule impacts departments differently. And certain departments like certain things at certain times of the day, and other departments do not. Science is very tough right now to have a class at the end of the day with them, period 5, because it's only 45 minutes, and to break up and set up and all that stuff, it's complicated for them. So they don't like that. So you need to get feedback on how the different periods and different times impact them. So we went and we met with all the different departments, and sometimes I had to meet with them 2 or 3 times. And then obviously going down the list there, one of the more important meetings that really started to shed some light on this is when Dr. Kenworthy came to the high school, and he started talking to us about what they did at Portsmouth, and what you can do at RIDE, what you can't do at RIDE, and how that fits into the schedule. And then we started believing, all right, this can work here. And as you can see, as you get a little bit further down the list, then we talked to Dr. Humbert and Dr. Ajay. They came to a department head meeting and talked to them. We presented our ideas to them, and they listened to the department heads. And this process has just been evolving to a point now where we think right now we have a schedule that will work next year. But I need to say to you that we've got so much feedback. We've included so many different people on here that we've really tried to get a good idea what everyone was looking for in a place that everyone could kind of agree to where this will work at North Kingston High School.
Thank you. So this is our essential question. It's very long. You can see it right up on the board. But, we really wanted to look at different, it was really about opportunities and being flexible and trying to increase all the, for all the stakeholders I just talked to you about. So here were some considerations to support the 8 periods. Senior privileges, to come in late or leave early. So if we had seniors that wanted to leave on an internship, or if they wanted to, studying the AMA and their recommendations for class not starting until later. We tried to figure out who in our building we could be able to do that with, and the seniors, have they can drive, and they're always asking for extra privileges. Sorry, they'll be gone, but you'll still be here. And so we're trying to figure out extra privileges of what could be something just for seniors, and then we would also offer learning centers or structured learning centers, and we'll go over what they are momentarily. But the math and the reading interventions, the multi-tiered student supports, that is a structured center. All right, and the other ones, learning center, all right, it's a block of time, and so many things could happen, and really the first year is going to be a pilot year, so we're trying to keep it pretty small about what we would be doing with the learning centers. But when I was talking to some kids, they said, well, what if I don't want to take an 8th class? What can I do? I'm good with the 8th class. And other people, like, I definitely want to have an 8th class. That was the whole reason why I wanted you to start in the first place, is because I can't take an elective because I'm in the career and tech, or I have a lab currently in math and I never get to take an elective. So we want people, though, if they are in an AP class and they need extra time, that might be an extended, conversations on AP, or it could be something that somebody else told me. I'd love to be able to, after my music class, be able to continue practicing with this quartet that I'm with, that we never get any time together to do it. So there's a bunch of different opportunities here once we get into the year to be able to tweak things for the following year. Right now, we'd like to get this in, see how it's working, pilot it, and kind of take a copious notes throughout the year and figure out. Same thing with graduation requirements. As far as our graduation rate goes, we have students that sometimes don't complete their Common Course assessments or their senior project, and we're chasing them around after school. That could be, during the day. We could pull them during this period and have them work on that. Anyway, those are just a couple of ideas. So here's our current bell schedule. I added this. I apologize. I sent this to you without our current bell schedule, and really, besides Mr. Jones, I don't know if anybody else, has children there, and would you even know what our current schedule is. So here's it's a day 1 and a day 2, but each day is just like this. First period advisory, third period, fourth period, and fifth period. And you can see the 45 minutes every day is here. And this is really a 90-minute class with, a half hour for passing and coming back and lunch. Right. So that's what's currently there, and that kind of was the pilot from years ago, but it never changed. All right. So what we really want to do is, this is the proposed bell schedule, and this one is periods 1 through 8. You'll notice 1, 2, 3, 4 on the day 1, and 5, 6, 7, or 8 are on the day 2, and all the periods are 80 minutes. Advisory is from 19 minutes down to 15 minutes, and and that's how we were able to bring up to the 80, between the 10 minutes from each class, and take that off every day. And then there's 3 lunches instead of 4 lunches. So that's the proposed bell schedule. And when we had conversations with the students, we had to bring it to them during advisory. It took a little time, or some people was like, whoa, 10:28 for lunch. But hey, you're there at 7:15, so your tummy might be grumbling around that time. Our other lunch starts not that much later, 10:45, around there the bell rings. So that's the proposed bell schedule. And this is when needed. Currently during advisory, sometimes we have surveys, or we have the guidance department needs to talk to students, or we have a guest speaker or something. And we will inevitably take time away from the first hour and the third hour class. And the teachers in the first hour and the third hour class are not always happy because we're shaving off 10 minutes here and there. So when you create the skipper block schedule, you just say, we have something going on in advisory that day. The advisory goes up to 28 minutes, and everybody gets the 4 minutes off of their schedule, and it's even Steven throughout the day. And so, again, I don't know how happy everybody will be with this, but at least it's across the board that we're taking the 4 minutes from. And the lunch on that day is still 3 lunches. We have the 3 lunches there. All right, so that's the one eating. I'm sorry, this is taking a while, but I just want to make sure I'm thorough. So the current steps right now that we've been doing, the dates are to the right of it, but we are going to be having a conversation with the union and administration on April 7th for a memorandum of agreement between the 2 parties. So hopefully that will all come through smashingly and everything will work. We had student information sessions the week of February 21st to the 24th. And students have been choosing their classes all the way up until last Friday, depending on the grade level that they're in. Then we had a student survey. I have 840 responses out of all of the 3 classes, because we did the rising freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. So we've had a pretty good response rate, and we're actually chasing down the kids that we didn't get, because it asked some specific questions like, when would you like to have a learning center, or would you like an elective instead? And I also asked for feedback. So anyway, seniors opt coming in late or leaving early. Again, that's with parental support, so we have to create something that goes out to the parents. They need to know about everything, options that they can do, school committee support. And right now, we are running as we start scheduling at the administration and guidance level. Dr. Morrison, Mrs. Sweet, and myself, with the guidance counselors, are currently putting up what happens if there's 7 and what happens if there's 8 until we get the go-ahead from the memorandum of agreement, which we're hoping for.
I just want to, first of all, thank you very much for this great presentation. You too, Mr. Antonician. I really appreciate the time and energy you put into this. And I just want the school committee to know, we're not asking for a vote on this evening, but she mentioned there is a meeting with the union to talk about the MOA, and that's part of something that we wrote into this previous contract. So we want to get that ironed out, and then we will bring that to you. And if that's all set with the school committee, then we would be ready to go for this September. And try to do that before April is done.
So future steps are teacher feedback, student feedback, and parent feedback. Again, we feel like the first couple of meetings, right, for going back to school, we would use just a constant back and forth on what's working and what isn't working, the pros and cons. I mean, we're very committed. We've been doing this for a couple of years now. We want to make sure it's right. So if there's something we need to do, and we also thought this would be a great opportunity. It would be a pilot. We'd collect data and indicate any additions that need to happen for the next contract to support the schedule if we wanted to continue on with this particular schedule. So it gives us a couple of years to do that. Finally, student feedback. So I had 880 at the time, but now I have 844. But when I created this is where we were. So 248 of the students would like to come into school after first period. What I need you to note, though, is that's 248 of the 880. So I did write it down. We have 343 rising seniors. So it's 248 out of the 343 rising seniors, which is 72%, want to come in late. And then I think there could be a little overlap here because we don't have this many seniors, would also like to leave early for an internship. So although it says 20% of the total answers, that's 67% of the senior class thinks they would like to leave a little early as well. But they gave me great feedback. So here's just a couple of, I just grabbed a few. I have oodles of phenomenal, and if you would like to see these responses, I don't have names attached to them, so if you'd like to see a list, that could help you. I'd say we probably have about 7 or 8 people that are negative or worrying about the particular schedule, or they're fine the way it is. Most people are for the actual feedback. All right, so catch up on work, that kind of thing. And then this one is somebody, they're very tired in the morning, so they would like to be able to have a student-driven study time. That's good. And then finally, a transfer student. This one is great. This school's extreme and unreasonable restrictions are quite baffling. All right, it's very overprotective. As I experienced this debatable change firsthand, I can firmly state that allowing seniors to come to school after first period won't cause any trouble. So I will leave that there. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And so is Mr.
Questions? I have one question.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate that there'd be that a certain group of students might feel pressure to take, instead of an elective or a free study period, more AP classes?
Well, that's always the case. If we had 10 spots,
right,
there would be people that would want to take 10 APs. Right now, I think with the climate that's out there. But what we are doing is we are basically going to populate in a learning center and then have to have discussions with kids that would like to take an extra electives. And so one of the things I'm most proud about the guidance department is they individually meet with each student on their caseload. Right. And so what happens, they go into the history classes to do that. Now, if somebody's absent that day or on a field trip, they end up finding them on their caseload, calling them down to the guidance department, and they talk to them about it. So sometimes they could be a change. We just don't allow students to go in and take whatever. Like we talk to them, like, what do you want to do and how do you want to do it? So there could be one student answered, I'd love to have a learning center, but I think my parents will want me to take another class. So that is definitely a conversation.
Right.
And I have the person's name that we can find out and see if there's anything we can answer for them or try to help them. But there's so much evidence that the students want the extra period,
Right.
that I can't not do it because people might feel pressure to take an AP. I would prefer to have,
yeah.
those conversations with the parents and just be like, our counselors they feel very strongly, like 3 AP is perfect, but
Right, so that's not the intent, because
it is not the intent.
if a college looks at the schedule and says, well, you're supposed to take the most rigorous schedule, and why are you taking a second elective? And then there's some kids that are doing it, then it becomes
I think it's a
crazy.
college-
You don't want to put too much pressure on the kids. I
I
think it's a
agree.
great schedule.
And
as
another
long as
thing
it's
that I
like that.
would say is, we have this thing, the North Kings Island School Department has been recognized with the Advanced Coursework Network.
Right.
Cindy Norman, she's a department chair, she kind of took that role on this year. So we have one of the highest populations and the amount of people that are involved in that. And so this would be a great opportunity. Right now, students have to do that either at night or on the weekend because there is no spot. But they could elect to take an Advanced Coursework Network course from the, through that whole online, you sign up, and we could have them be in a room with a teacher, and that could be what they do during there. And that is actually some college level
Yeah,
classes.
that's
and
advanced, but it's not just adding. another-
yeah, and it could be or it could be an
adding too
elective,
much.
that's something we don't offer. So there's
Yeah,
some
that's
real
great.
opportunity there.
Other questions? Mr. Jones? Yeah, I want to say, we all kind of have our pet things that we care about, and personalization was one for me, so it's really great to see the, amount of effort and teamwork and collaboration that's been going on with this effort and where we've come in the past few years. So it's real kudos to everyone involved in working this. My first question might be if we involve jitters in this so they understand that, their flow might change a little bit. But more serious. So one of the things I know when we went to Chromebooks, East Greenwich being a year ahead of us, we learned some stuff from that. So what kinds of things was Portsmouth and stuff telling us, that kind of the lessons learned that other districts have had?
Well, I will speak to Coventry because that was the first one we thought we were going to definitely do. They have an 8 period, but the teachers came and we hosted them because they wanted to see about our Success Academy and the successes we've had there. And while they were there, I asked similar questions. I said, okay, now that you're here, how about you answer a few questions for us? And the teachers were very honest, and what they do is they do a 90-minute advisory period or an 88-minute advisory period. And so they do half where it's advisory and half you can go to any other class and make stuff up. But there's no software that goes with it, so tracking the students is very difficult. And they said that it wasn't effective. So we thought, thank you for the honesty about that. Portsmouth, they're the ones who talked about the learning centers, and that's where they do their multi-tiered supports, and that's really good because currently we have students that might be scheduled into a lab, and they are there for the semester at least or the year. But with multi-tiered supports, you can have somebody go in and do something structured, for a class time, 2 class time until they get back up. And then you can take them off. So that was a real selling point about why this might be something that we should do versus locking somebody in. So a student that definitely needs the help for the year, they can still have the lab. But somebody that a teacher might want to recommend to go just into, let's say, Algebra 2 and not have the lab, and they're on the fence, they could say, I want Algebra 2, but you'll go into a structured learning center. And that way you can go in, there'll be a math teacher in there, they can help you, you can go in Khan Academy, but it won't be that you have to go to math every day and lose an elective. So that's one of the things we learned from Portsmouth, which was huge.
Right. We learned from Narragansett. Narragansett schedules their kids to go for extra help, I think on Mondays, to go out for the rest of the week during that directed study time or advisory time.
Yes.
But the difference is Narragansett schedules 500 kids. We'd be scheduling 1,600 kids. And to have that amount, so many kids moving about the building, no one felt comfortable with that. So we'd rather go this direction first, and then once we were comfortable with this, if we decide we want to go in that direction and get software to do that, we would. We felt it was too big of a step to try the Narragansett model right away and try to move 1,500 kids in all different directions, being scheduled on Monday for the rest of the week, and then being able to track them where they're supposed to be. Because they could really go to math one day for extra help, they could go to English one day, they could go to PE. It's not like you're moving whole groups of kids to one class. They're supposed to be in PE every Tuesday, Thursday. They could be anywhere, and we just thought there was too much of an undertaking for a school our size. So we like the 8-period schedule. We like some of the freedom that the kids had there for senior privileges. And then we looked at Portsmouth, and we liked some of the things that Dr. Kenworthy showed us as far as being able to even schedule and code things, so they pass the writing test, I guess.
Yeah, and I will say to Portsmouth, they gave us a number of about 20% of the students take an elective. So that's what we based it off of. About 20% of the students would take another elective, and most students opt for the Learning Center once they know what it is. A lot of people, I don't know, you boys maybe can speak to that. Some of the students didn't understand what a Learning Center was. So they're like, I don't want that. But then when they realized they could create their own, like what they wanted to do, and then people started coming around and asking the email me, can we do something with, somebody asked about doing, extending their language. So they have their class, but then they would go there and speak back and forth. And some of the French teacher, we have a French teacher, a Spanish teacher, they all said they would do it for that particular language. So that's just like some stuff coming out, and it's, so that's pretty great.
I think one of the other things we found out too was the kids who are involved in a lot of remediation, they get shut out of a lot of elective courses. They constantly, they get double English, double math in lab. So there's no room in their schedule for any type of electives. That fun class where you get the break from the core classes. And for a lot of those kids, that's motivation for the other classes. But right now, they're shut out of it in the current schedule that we have. So creating that extra period allows those kids who are in a lot of remedial classes to have that elective that they otherwise wouldn't get.
Any other questions? Yeah. Mr. McGovern?
So how does, how does the proposed schedule affect the total amount of time that students would have in, the traditional high school core courses of math, science, English, those things?
Do you mean the daily minutes of instructional time that RIDE goes by? We made it stay the same, right? So they have 10 minutes less in the class for that, but what they do have is another 80 minutes to extend. So if there's a lot of the AP teachers were specific on this, saying they would like to have an opportunity for students to talk about a lab, or even the National Honor Society students. One of the advisors, Chris Graham, said that the tutors could come in and they could, post something. So it's really 21st century learning, I think, at its best, because it's student-driven. And so you're still going to have opportunities in there. Like the kids that need to have the multi-tiered supports are going to get them from a teacher, what they need. But the students they're going to have a choice on what they do for their learning for that particular period. And I feel like the whole personalization thing and RIDE and some directives that we've been given, I think that really kind of solves that position.
So,
they're not going to not have a class. They're just going to have 10 minutes fewer of that particular class, and the teachers I think that's one of the, maybe you should speak to that.
That was one of the first questions. We were worried about science in particular, if going from 90 minutes to 80 minutes was enough time. And what science gave us the green light. They're like, we can get it done within those 80 minutes. And I feel, and probably the kids feel too, 90 minutes is just too long. You stretched out a lot of kids, and if you remember some of your college classes, most of us avoided Tuesday, Thursday classes because they were 90 minutes, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday were your 60 or 75-minute classes. And I always found the 3-hour classes in the evening much easier than the 90-minute classes. I don't know, but most of us at the high school feel the 90 minutes is just too long. And we provide kids with those breaks because they can't sustain that period. They can't sustain constant learning for that amount of time where they just need some time. So we're just condensing it or just backing out some of those spare minutes we have there. So learning would flow a lot better in those 80 minutes.
Okay, but on the personalized learning aspect, so you have there's software that will track where the kids are choosing to go?
We're not doing that software. We would if we took the task period, we would have to buy the software. So right now, they're going to be tracked in our Aspen software. It has the capabilities to do that. So we're sticking with what we have, and we're going to, schedule them just as we would 7 periods, only with 8 periods.
Just I know from my own experience that some students are self-driven and they can, they're responsible enough to go and, go to their classes, and then when they have options, they'll choose responsibly, and then there's others who will say whippy and try to use that as just
goof off.
Oh, no, everybody is somewhere. So it's an option because you can choose where you want to go, but you are expected to be somewhere. I mean, right now, we have students, they can tell you, we have students sometimes right now that don't choose to show up. I mean, there's natural consequences, you don't pass. So, so the thing I would say, that's why it's so great to have this internship option, because if we have some students that are not doing well or they want to do something, we might be able to find out another way for them to go, and that they really find that they're engaged and they're hands-on, something like that.
But like, is the learning center something they sign up for at the beginning of the year, and that's where they have to be every?
So there'll be learning centers each period. So there'll be so depending on where they are, so they might have like 7 classes in their schedule, and one could be a learning center. And during that learning center, you could sit there, you know, whoever the teacher happens to be, let's say it's Mr. Abedisian, I could go up to him and talk to him about my democracy project, I could talk to him about a lot of different humanities things. There's going to be other teachers that are on the others, so he might say, I have somebody that's interested in math, I'm going to go call, you know, somebody up. They've talked about like maybe having it in the cafeteria or have it in a larger room, so if any kid needs anything specific support, they can do that. Or they can just go on, put the headphones on, and go to Khan Academy, and they can work on that. Or they could be working on the senior project, or they could work on, it depends on what they want to do. So it's different, so sometimes it's hard to wrap your head around it, but that's what we're doing right now with the scheduling, is we're trying to keep them pretty basic. Like the structured learning labs might be like Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, you know, that kind of thing in the beginning, or writing or reading, just support in the beginning. And then some of the AP classes, extension. But kids have asked us for lots of different options. We're just thinking we might want to go slowly in the beginning so we can see what works, and then you know, loosen it up a little maybe for second semester. But first semester is going to be pretty rigid, just so we can get everybody in, and then we'll go from there.
Anyone else? Well, I just want to commend you folks for, it's clear that a tremendous amount of work and collaboration over a long period of time has gone into this, and I think it's an excellent example of, you know, really bringing everybody involved and trying to come up with a plan that works. As I'm sure you know far better than I, getting that many people together to make a change to anything involves a lot of give and take and wins and loses, and it's hard to get a consensus. So it looks like you've done a pretty good compromise. From what I can see. So, and I'd encourage, you know, anyone, we've gotten some, I can speak for myself, I don't know everyone else, we've gotten some emails from different people on that. If anyone, you know, has any other comments for school committee members, if they want to send us, we'd be happy to hear thoughts in that area as well. But thank you.
Thank you.
So, the next item on our agenda is a presentation regarding E-rate special construction.
Boy, what a tough act to follow. Thanks. Okay, so let me start off by saying the project that I'm going to discuss right now is currently out to bid. So when I tell people about E-rate, I like to equate it to, it's like filing your taxes, but on steroids. So there are very strict guidelines that you must follow. There are very stringent rules, you know, as far as no contact and answering questions and everything having to be posted into this specific portal. So E-rate is an FCC program that's made available to schools and libraries, and what it does is it helps to make internet and internal connections more affordable. It's been around since 1997, and it's something we apply for each year. So through E-rate, schools are eligible to apply for reimbursement for different services. The percent that you get back is based off of the poverty level, how many kids qualify for free and reduced lunch, and it ranges anywhere from 20% to 90%. North Kingstown, we qualify for a 50% reimbursement. So right now, we get reimbursed 50% for internet and 50% for our managed network, which is the management of our routers. And beginning 2 years ago, they started phasing down. You used to get reimbursement for cell phones and for landlines. 2 years ago, they started reducing it by 20%. So this year is the last year that we can receive any type of reimbursement, and it's only at 10%. So how does the E-rate program work? As I mentioned, there's a specific portal that if we want to apply for any services, we put a bid out in the USAC portal. We complete an RFP, just like we normally would, and then companies from around the country can bid on these projects. Once you accept a bid, you come to the school committee to get approval, and if approval is granted, we then go back and submit another form, which is now telling USAC or E-rate that we've put this project out to bid, we've gotten financial backing for the other, in our case it'd be 50%. Now we're asking you to fund the other half. And that's a process that can take months. Once they come back and say they'll fund it, we then have to pay it in full and then fill out a number of reports, including invoices and any type of proof, saying that, yes, we've received the services, and then we get reimbursed. We are still seeking FY15 money, so it is a process that carries on for a number of years. So specifically to the project that I'm discussing is a fiber optic project. Before I get into the details of the fiber optic project, I want to currently talk to you about what we currently have. So on the list you can see the list of buildings and schools that we have on the left-hand side. Then you'll see it says current year 16-17 bandwidth. So the bandwidth is the circuit that we get. Now I'm going to try and not get too technical, but I do have to dive in a little bit, and if there are really technical questions, I have a couple of my technicians, Jason, who's our network manager, and Chris, who's our systems administrator, who can really get technical if anyone wants to. But you will see we currently get, at our elementary schools in this building, we get a 250 megabit circuit. We get a 500 megabit circuit at Davisville, and then we get a 1 gig circuit at Wickford and a 1 gig circuit at the high school / data center. I already know the question is coming. Why does Wickford get a 1 gig circuit and Davisville gets a 500 gig circuit? And I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to ask that question because I believe Wickford getting a 1 gig circuit is a mistake. And I don't think that they would give Davisville a 1 gig circuit to make it even. I think they would take 500 megabytes away from Wickford. So that's going to be our little secret down here. Well, this is public and on the record. So down here you'll see this number that will probably jump out at you, about $102,000. So on everyone's landline, you'll see a 26-cent per month fee that says Rhode Island School and Libraries Fund or RIDE-TEEF. There's a fund that the state has that everybody who has a telephone landline contributes to. Right now, RIDE pays this $102,000 on our behalf to Cox Communications. And that covers not our internet, but it covers our transportation costs of getting to the internet. So there's a breakdown by building. So a 250 meg circuit costs just under $10,000 per year. A 500 meg circuit or half a gig circuit costs just over $11,000, and a full gig circuit costs just under $12,000 per year. You can see over 3 years, this column right here shows how much the price has increased over 3 years, and then the last column shows how much our bandwidth has increased. So you can see our bandwidth increases are just taking off. There's NA for the administration building because we've not been here 3 years to get a comparison. When administration was located on 100 Fairway, they fell under the high school and data center circuit. Yeah, questions as we go is fine.
I'm just looking at why there's different, like Davisville Middle, the price change is 13 for 500. We don't have another comparison, but like the 1 gig, why the high school go up 100%?
I'm going to guess, and Chris, you may know the answer. Did they go from a half a gig to a gig over the past,
I
at
believe
some
so.
point over the past couple of years? So what happens is every September, I submit a document to RIDE, and this year being my first year in this first September in this position, I did it for the first time. And I basically say to them, I want and I'll tell you what I requested. I requested all of our 250 megabit circuits to go up to 500, our 500 to go to a gig. I didn't ask anything for Wickford. I'm just going to let that one slide. And I asked the high school to go up to 1.5 gig. So I have made my request. I've got my hands out asking for more, for larger circuits. I keep being told any day now we're going to hear back about what our circuits for next year are going to be. We haven't heard back. But we're at their mercy to give us what they can afford. And you're going to see a slide on that later. So I did include in this year's rationale, we're 1-to-1 with Chromebooks. We are, and we're now moving towards a more blended learning, so we'll therefore need larger circuits to consume more bandwidth. So I did make the plea for them to pay for larger circuits, but you're going to see in a slide later why my pleas may not be fulfilled. Any other questions? So SETDA stands for the State Education Technology Directors Association, and it's a national association. And they classify the North Kingston School District as a high bandwidth profile. You can see we're not moderate, we're not very high, so we're being fair. And it's because we're in a 1-to-1 environment. And they give a couple of recommendations for what you should have for bandwidth based off of what you have in your district. So we are classified as high. You're going to see where that comes into effect here in a minute. So based off of that SETDA recommendation, they recommend high bandwidth communities plan to double your WAN, your wide area network, your circuit. Plan on doubling that each year. So this is a chart that goes out. Again, that Wickford number is probably a little bit inflated, but Chris always tells me if we go back 5 years, we might be saying, wow, we're going to have next year we're going to have 500 meg internet service. We only had 100, So the internet's changing, what we're doing with devices, what kids are creating, it's all changing. So this just kind of plans it out for the next 5 years. Again, this takes a look at your WAN. WAN is your circuit. WAN is what would allow us to connect all of our buildings together in one network. Currently, we have 10 mini networks, which means we have 10 servers, we have 10 routers, we have 9 backup systems, and then we have 1 enterprise level backup system. A professional system, what we need, but we can't afford to have 10 data centers. So we have 9 mini data centers and then 1 data center. If we move forward with a fiber project, our 10 little networks become 1 large network. So based off of these guidelines, you can see any school that falls into the red means they are more than 100 megabits behind where they should be. Yellow means they're right around 100, and green means they're good to go. These graphs just illustrate the previous slide, which shows our both internet and bandwidth are increasing. So the reason I'm here, special construction. 2 years ago, E-rate and USAC and the FCC noticed this balloon coming. So they allowed districts to request special construction. In the first year, I don't believe any districts were approved. It was too new. Again, going back to following guidelines and proving that the project you're going to create is going to save money in the long run, we just weren't there. Last year, Woonsocket applied and was approved, and it took them 12 months. They weren't approved till December. So their construction is starting now to hopefully go live in July. So we were fortunate in that for our application, because these are all public documents, the Education Superhighway has taken a lot of the RFPs that were successful and created boilerplate templates that we were able to customize and complete. So the process wasn't as tedious this year, which is why there are a number of other districts who are considering it. I haven't I haven't inquired because I'm worried about my own house right now to see if they've actually gone through with the paperwork. But I know Westerly, Newport, Central Falls, Warwick, we're considering it at some point whether they're actually going through. I know from our communications with Block Island, they're looking at doing something for next year. There is a little bit of hesitation in that with the new administration, they've appointed a new FCC director who has made statements about wanting to look at E-rate again. What I've heard from attending some informational meetings is that there's some concern on the 90% districts, which we are not, but there's less ownership because it's less of your money. You know, you're more likely to do something where you have a minimal financial obligation. So special construction will allow us to fund three components, which would be the construction of the network, the design and engineering, and then the project management. So the proposal would be, what we're looking at would probably be the most financially sound proposal, would be going with a dark fiber solution. So there's lit fiber, which means it is a turnkey solution. There's dark fiber, which is pretty much they would run a cable from this building to that building, this building to the next, so on and so forth to create a, not a hub and spoke, but a ring design. And then, so now we only have a wire. So that's no good to us. You go into the second bullet, which is the managed optics, which allows us to control the ends on that wire. So we might start off with a 1 gigabit or a 10 gigabit connection, but I could come back to you 5 years from now saying it's time to clip those ends and go 100 gig or 40 gig. And at that point, the only thing we're doing is we're changing our optics. We're not running wires. The infrastructure is already in place. So, I should probably warn you before I go to the next one. So the next one is the money slide. What I should warn you about is this is an estimate. I asked Ocean, who's our current provider, who will be bidding on this project, I assume. We had a mandatory pre-bid conference a couple weeks ago. 2 companies showed up, Cox Communications and Ocean. So those are the only 2 people who can bid on the project at this point. I asked them to give me a ballpark of what a project like this is going to cost, because I don't want to come to you in one meeting asking you for the number I'm going to show you without at least giving you folks a heads up, time to ask questions, time to think about it. So I asked them for a ballpark. So here's the ballpark. Hope everybody's sitting. So it'd be about $400,000 for new fiber. It'd be $118,000 if Ocean was awarded the project, which again, I'm going to be clear, this is out to bid right now. The bids are not due for a week from Friday, and we're opening them the following Monday, so none of these numbers are carved in stone. Ocean has existing fiber, so fiber is a cable. There are multiple strands of fiber within that cable. So what we would be doing is we would be hopping into some of their strands on their existing cable, which is why the 118 would be a savings. They estimate approximately $25,000 for installation, $12,000 for project management, $5,000 for splicing, which is connecting the fibers together. We get a credit of $3,500 for existing fiber. I asked if they were missing a few zeros. They were pretty confident in that number, which would give us a total construction cost of $560,000. Again, we're an E-rate 50% district. We would be responsible for half. With that comes annual charges, because now we own an asset. So these are our fiber cables that are up on the poles. We would want fiber maintenance, which would be if a tree falls down and takes down our line, we call whoever the winning vendor is, we call them up and say, we don't have connection. They figure out where the cut is, do the repair. Part of the RFP is a service level agreement with certain, within 4 hours they have to have a plan, within 2 hours they have to make contact. So there are certain levels to keep us moving. The optical fee would be the managed routers. So this is an estimate if we were to go with the 10 gig transport fee. And then, so the total recurring would be about $41,000 per year. Again, half of that would be E-ratable with a potential additional amount that could be reimbursed from that RITE fund that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, but I'm going to get into that in a future slide. So currently, Cox invoices RIDE $102,000 per year for kind of what I just proposed to you. So RIDE is currently paying $102,000 for what I just proposed to you, but we're getting it at the 250 meg circuit, the 500 meg circuit, and the 1 gig circuit. At that $560,000 estimate, it would be ours. We wouldn't have to ask for it, and we would have a 10 gig circuit out of each building. Let's see here. So all schools would allow an internet connection. That's going from having 9 mini data centers to just having 1 or 2. Operating expenses I just covered, and then North Kingstown, I figured I'd put in the 50% a few times just to remind everybody that it's half. So with this slide here, this is confusing. These numbers are not set in stone. I requested, and we can request through E-rate, that we be given a 4-year payback period. So the top, so option 1 would be we pay back our 50% in year 1, and then you can see our recurring annual costs. So you've got the 41,000 divided by half in year 2. This network would cost us approximately $20,000. Option 2 would be the same $20,000 per year, all the way out through year 5, but it's taking the $280,000 and paying it back over 4 years. And then option 3 is the 4-year payback with, and I want to explain this. So I'm going to go back 2 slides. This 10 gig fee, this $18,000 fee, that is what RIDE is currently paying us. We would ask RIDE, so instead of paying $102,000 per year, can you pay this $18,000 per year? So option 3 is asking and RIDE saying yes to paying the $18,000 per year, and then we're responsible for half of the balance. And I will say that just a few weeks ago, the Lieutenant Governor and the Chief Innovation Officer met with the folks at Ocean, who have really been pushing forward at looking at this RITE fund and how do we, I haven't got to this slide yet, but how do we prolong its existence? Because I'm going to show you in a minute we're in a little bit of trouble with this fund and with the $102,000 that's being paid. So let's get there. If you look at FY13, you can see they carried over from FY12 about $470,000. The RITE fund, which is that 26-cent fee, brought in about $1.2 million, and their expenditures for all the circuits across the state was about $1.5, allowing them to forward a balance of $124,000.
Can I ask, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Yes.
But there's one thing that I was going to ask before, and it's jumping out here again.
Sure.
And this is a big picture State House question. That fee only is on landlines, not cell phones?
Correct.
That's half their problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because as anyone in this room knows that there are a lot less landlines in the world than there were, and that's not going to change.
And you're going to really see that in 2015, and it has been brought up about putting that fee on cell phone lines, and there's just some folks at the big house in Providence that are resistant to that.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So in 14, you can see they carried over the $124,000, brought in $1.2 million from the RITE fund. But if you look here, you see the general revenue was a $400,000 kick-in. They actually needed more money than they had. So the General Assembly, or from the general account, had to kick in $400,000 so that the fund would not be in the negative. So with the $400,000 addition, they were able to carry over about $192,000. So FY15, you can see, this is when we started hearing about cut the cord. Our FY15, the RITE fund was only at $1 million. Again, needed that $400,000 boost, but now we're only carrying over $93,000. So now FY16 and 17, and this information is right out of the state budget. So this slide is coming right from there. This is not my numbers. But 16 and 17 are projected. I'm curious about where they got a $200,000 increase in their IT fund, but I only took one accounting class in college. So $93,000 is what they carried over from 15. They're projecting about $1.2 million from the IT fund. Again, they're looking at the $400,000 bailout, but you can see now they're carrying a negative balance. So carrying that over, and if you look at the kick, if you look at what they'll be asking for in FY17, we can all see that this fund is in trouble. We don't need Mary here to tell us that, there's problems with this fund. So that's why I think now is a good time to be considering a project like this.
So essentially, if we're hedging, you're saying that, assuming there's not the will to keep pumping more general funds in, is that they're just going to cut expenditures. And so that would be cutting our 102,000.
And we'd be picking
And then we'd be picking it up regardless of whether we go to something new or keep the old.
Correct. Either way, we need that $102,000. We need that $102,000 bill to be paid. Now, is it possible that we're a 50% E-rate district? Maybe to prolong it, they'll cut it down to whatever your E-rate funding is what will kick in. That's a possibility. I have not heard that from anybody, but I would see that as a logical next step. I don't see it going from 100% to 0%. It's possible, but I would think that they would more likely reduce it to everyone's E-rate percentage. So the other benefits, the benefits that we would see every day, and here I'm going to get a little technical. So through our internet service provider, we essentially have two layers of the internet. We have the unmetered layer of the internet, and we have the metered layer of the internet. So for all of our kids, we purchased 300 megabyte internet service. Next year, that's going up to 500 megabytes. So wherever you have the circuit to accommodate 300 or 500 megabytes next year, you get 500 megabytes to the entire internet. But we've got this unmetered portion, which includes Netflix, all the Google cache servers, a number of major servers where we never have to go all the way out to the internet. We can stay local. So by going with this 10 gig circuit, we would have 10 gig internet connection to the Google cache servers in New York City. So we would be pinging a Google cache server in New York City in 0.3 of a second. We would have results. So we're talking real high speed for what we're doing every day. By having this 10 gig network, we can locate equipment for disaster recovery anywhere from Danvers, Mass. to New York City. So if Superstorm Sandy came up a few hundred miles and devastated us, we could have equipment with backups running in New York City or up in Danvers, Mass. So it does give us options to co-locate equipment. It allows us to utilize our enterprise level, our real good backups that we pay good money for, but we can only do it on certain networks. We can't do it on every network. So we have backup of those networks, but we don't have redundant backups. So right now, if a hard drive fails on the data center, we have redundancy. If a hard drive fails at one of our backups, we have one backup. If both hard drives were to fail, or if it was a catastrophic failure, we're in trouble at that school until we can get it repaired.
Can I jump in with more questions on the whole ring bit?
Certainly.
So, I'm trying to get the right wording here. So, right now you've got a gigabit to the high school. Different schools have different levels. Mm-hmm. Would this link everything together in such a way that it would sort of scale between the schools, so that if one school is using more data one day, they would be taking up more of the pipe, but the other schools? I'm trying to get that. Sort of even the playing field, like it's all shared together in one big pool, or would it still be sort of blocked out to the different schools?
No, everybody would be equal at 10 gigabit.
Okay,
everyone would be equal at 10 gigabit. We could throw everything at it. Again, if we're just
one big pool, it's not individual bits.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And what this would also do is right now we have servers in every school, and the Wickford data closet is in the bathroom. So there are pipes running above our data closet and around our data closet at Wickford Middle School, where we have the Park Cache server running, where we have
next to the janitor's sink, it's fine.
So you've been in there. Yes, it is right next to the janitor's sink.
You're actually correct about that.
I was joking, but that's okay.
We have very warm and very dusty rooms through no fault of anyone. They're just warm and dusty, and we've got expensive equipment in there. This would allow us to, instead of having 9 servers out there, we've just got 1 server in our data center, which has a very expensive air conditioning system with vents in the floor so that the air comes up over it to keep it cool. This would allow us to bring back services from the school and house them where they're designed to be housed. Yes.
So you talked about fiber and splicing. Is this fiber optic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. It's either 2-strand or 4-strand fiber.
Any other questions?
Mr. Jones?
So thinking about the annual cost, but what's kind of the life cycle of this in terms of downstream, and I can't wrap my head around this, so I'm going to use the example thinking like if we put in a turf field, right, 10 years or 15 years from now, we need to budget for, a major replacement. So what's kind of the life, is there an analogy here about at some point having to do major upgrades?
Like pipes.
So what I'd be asking you for is probably a 20-year commitment, which would consist of a 10-year commitment followed by 2 5-year renewals. And the reason why I would be asking you for that is at our next meeting, I'm going to show you a return on investment based off of a number of scenarios on when this would start being profitable. I cannot get this funded by E-rate unless I can prove that this is going to save us money in the long term. So I'm presuming I'll be coming back to you at a future meeting. If I get the bids in and we don't have a return on investment, unless we want to pay the entire bill, we cannot move forward with the project with E-rate funding. Again, we can move forward with the project, but we would be responsible for 100% of the cost.
So try to think of...
So to answer your question, so we could start off with 10 gig fiber this year, and then I'm coming back in 5 years and saying it's time to upgrade our optics. So the fiber that's out on the poles is still good. We just have to cut the ends, add 25 gig or 40 gig or 100 gig ends, and we've now been upgraded.
Do we know that fiber will be state-of-the-art for
That's my-
5 or 10?
And what's the data limit on the fiber? Like if you're setting up for 10 gigs now, I mean,
Yep.
what is the physical current limit on the?
I'm going to defer to Jason.
Anybody else?
Basically, the speed of light.
No, but I mean, if you can run 10 gigs through it now, okay,
Yep.
presumably you can, as technology increases and the transmitting equipment, you may be able to up it. But I would
Yeah.
assume that there's a physical limit to how much data you could push through that fiber.
It pretty much isn't.
Okay.
It's the same piece of glass, whether you run 10 gigs or 100 gigs or 1,000 gigs or.
Okay.
No, and that's not to say that the technology, fiber could be replaced by something else that by microwave that we don't yet know about. But right now, the limits are not there, I think it's safe to say. We haven't seen the limits of what the fiber can do yet. I am sure at some point we will, but we don't know yet.
I'm trying to think of, I don't know the right term for this, so again, I'll kind of use an analogy. If we put like a boiler in each school and then decide to close a couple schools, like is the boiler replaceable? Like if I put new desks in every one, well, I can take those desks out and move it to a different school. So if we go forward with this and connect all the different schools, but we also got a major infrastructure initiative, which may or may not happen, but may result in schools changing, closing, new ones. So how sort of fungible is this plan to kind of maybe a change in the district infrastructure 5 years?
I see where you're
What
going.
if you pulled one of the links out of
Yeah.
your circle? Do you have a hole?
Can we save that thing and reroute it somewhere else, or is it lost fiber? Or
I'm not sure if we would essentially be able to wind it up, pull it in a different direction. But what we would certainly be able to do is if we opened up a new building somewhere, we would be, when we're talking about whatever building we're moving to or building, we would have to factor in what it would cost to run the fiber from wherever it's located to our closest fiber that it could cut
And
connect
presumably
into.
it'd be cheaper if that line happened to run by anyway. For
Correct.
example,
Correct. And that's where part of our savings is that in Ocean's projection, they have fiber right on this road here. So our laterals are just going right into it. And then once we're on it, we're using some of the strands that are in their fiber anyway, so we're not running a new physical cable.
So my other question is the extent of how this meshes or doesn't mesh with the municipal side in terms of the library or other town, departments and stuff. Is this something, because I would assume the town wants, the municipal side wants good fiber optics too, so is there, does E-rate only apply to the school? Is there collaboration opportunities, cost sharing?
E-rate only
efficiency?
applies to the schools, and this is where we start getting really technical on the E-rate side. In that, so yes, you could include other town buildings, but we would have to deduct out their costs. But what I know about fiber is that usually fiber, so the smallest fiber is the 12 strand. So the smallest fiber is the 12 strand. So we would be occupying 2 or 4. So there would be strands available, but we can't give those strands away. Those would have to be paid for, and then the cost would have to be backed out. Yes. Yep. So the only one who could jump on would be the library, because they are, if they do participate in the E-rate program, they would be eligible to jump on at the 50%. But this plan right now is just the schools, and in our RFP, we even say we have to have our own dedicated network that doesn't touch anybody else.
That's my final question. So when we're thinking about, budgeting for this, like you mentioned that we're still owed reimbursements from 2 years ago. So would we have to pay for all these costs up front and wait for reimbursements, or?
With this, the 50% comes out year one, and then our 50% or our 1/4% of our 50%, if we went with the 4-year payback option, would be due year one as well. So E-rate will give you the lump sum up front.
Oh, okay.
That actually is better from what my question was going to be is there a risk, we have a new administration in Washington and everything is on the table right now. Would there be a situation where, we might have the money year one, but then in the out years, all of a sudden the program's gone and we're left hanging? So you're saying that it all happens up front?
Year one, yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we could pay that. So we would pay their 50% right away, and then our 12.5% each year over the 4 years. So right. So if the program disappeared, and in some of the meetings I've been to, there is talk that get in while you can, because there is a limit to this fund. It's $3.9 billion. So there is a limit to the fund, and there is, with the new administration, thought that change could be on the horizon.
Would that affect the annual cost that they do 50% of as well?
It could. So we could go from 50% to 0%, 50% to 20%. It certainly could. That projection, but what it wouldn't do is if we went in this year and got everything, our 50% for the lump sum of the project. So that's the benefit to this project, in that everything is done up front. And then it's just your annual making sure making sure if a tree falls on the line or a telephone pole blows over, you can call somebody to get them out there to get it back up and operational.
Other questions? Dr. O'Shea, you want to?
Yeah, I just want to thank Mr. Waterman for a great presentation. You are no slouch yourself. I just want to remind again for the committee, there is not a vote on this tonight. We have an RFP in action, and as soon as that is all set, we will come back to you with a lot more details about what we're actually proposing.
Thank you. You've given us a lot to think about. Obviously, we're not doing anything or making any commitments at this point. It's just something that we're going to have to revisit when we see the bids and see how the numbers work out, and if it's something that we can do.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Next item on the agenda are citizens.
A couple of
Oh, I'm sorry, jump. Sorry, skipped presentation and recognition. Sorry.
Yeah, a couple of quick recognitions. First, if you are on Facebook or Twitter, or you can go to the district webpage, using all that broadband we're going to get. We have a video posted from Lillian Steinwa Adler, and she has won a video contest for the Rhode Island Foreign Language Association. And it's a really cool couple-of-minute video that she made. She's also a comm student at the high school, so she made this video encouraging students to take foreign languages. It's really worth seeing, so it's good for her. Dr. Humbert is also going to talk about some all-state honors that we've received.
Right, we had some real accomplishments, as usual, I guess I should say, but district-wide for the middle school and the high school for all-state band, jazz band, chorus, and orchestra. We had a total of 34 students being recognized through those programs, accepted into those ensembles. 8 were ranked number 1 in the state for their age and instrument and voice. And of special recognition, we had Stephen Landry, who was from grade 9, and Danny Ventura from grade 8. They were accepted into the Rhode Island's All-State Junior Jazz Ensemble, and they were our first-place winners. Additionally, we've had students at the high school level accepted into these other prestigious bands. We had 15 students accepted into the Southern New England Honors Band, 6 students into the Providence College Honors Band, 5 into the American Choral Directors Honor Chorus, and Carnegie Hall National Honors, we had 1 student accepted into that. So, very strong program.
It is a tremendous program at the high school, and something that
And middle school.
is unique in Rhode Island. So very proud of that.
For citizens' comments, I have 2 individuals who signed up. Once these 2 have gone, if there's anyone else who didn't get a chance to sign up, please just raise your hand and let me know. The first person is Jeff Land, and if you could come to the microphone, please state your name and address, and we ask if you could please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
3 minutes, okay. Jeff Land, 23 Sedgefield Road. So, I just want to basically talk about the new schedule, potential new schedule. First, I just want to say that the high school, it's a really wonderful high school, and Dr. Minseri is doing a great job and her staff. And I'm not just saying that because I got 3 kids in the high school. I want to get on our good side. But anyway, every day before this was even announced or even talked about, my kids have come to me and said they want to do more things. The wonderful thing about the high school is it has so many great programs, whether it's audiovisual, photography, music, robotics, computers, and all 3 of my kids would like to take some other classes, and they just can't get to it. So I very much support it, and I think it would be a really wonderful opportunity for them to take some additional things that interest them. It doesn't necessarily mean that they would take another honors class. In fact, I don't think that's the case at all. So just give you a perspective on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person is Mr. Richard August.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Richard August, 79 Apple Tree Court. I also happen to be the current chairman of the Charter Revision Commission. We haven't met in several years because, as you may be aware, the Charter Revision Commission meets at the call of the Town Council. I noticed in the minutes, I guess, of the last meeting that Mr. Jones made a motion or a recommendation that the Town Council be asked to look into the issue of the fiscal year ends of towns and school districts. The last time the Charter Revision Commission met, we reviewed the entire charter. And at that time, the school committee at that time had asked the town council to put that on the agenda, which it was. And we approached the state and asked if there was any way that could happen. The Auditor General of the State of Rhode Island said absolutely not. Although in principle I agree with the thrust of Mr. Jones' recommendation, because it just doesn't seem very logical to me to have the state have one fiscal year end and the municipalities and school districts don't have the full assurance of how much money they're getting from the state. You just have to go on a wing and a prayer, but it's not going to happen. The Auditor General said it would be much too difficult, and there would have to be really 2 audits for every municipality, because there'd be a short period of for an audit, and a full year audit that would be required for every municipality. So that would be a cost prohibition, and also just the mechanics of allocating the tax bills and so forth would be just too monumental. So it's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else who didn't sign up who'd like to speak?
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Shea.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on an email that I sent to the community last week. I've had a number of people write to me asking about the district's policy on transgender, particularly since the Trump administration kind of shifted course from the Obama administration on this recently. And at our last meeting, Alex Supron, a student at the high school, did a really courageous thing, coming up to the microphone and talking about the issue. And so while this was in the works already, I appreciate him giving me the nudge to kind of get this information out there. And basically, the district follows the law. So our policies provide and will continue to provide protections which comply with state and federal law concerning bullying, harassment, discrimination. These protections are inclusive of the rights applicable to transgender and non-conforming students. And our administrators have all had extensive discussions with legal support to make sure that we're doing the right thing by everybody in this issue. So I just want to be clear about that for my report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. So next, we have routine items. First I can say that and disclose that we had no votes during our executive session this evening on March 28, 2017. I'd ask for a motion to seal the executive session minutes of March 28, 2017.
Second.
So I have a motion by Mrs. McGovern and a second by Ms. Hoskins. Any discussion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And next, we have reached our consent agenda. Any members have any items they would like to exempt from the consent agenda?
Okay, hearing none, I would ask for a motion to...
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yes.
got one, sorry.
D1.
D1.
Okay. So I ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item D1.
Second.
So we have a motion from Ms. Stevens, second from Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Any opposed? Sorry. Passes unanimously. Item D1, Ms. McGovern.
So on this item, if you recall, about a year to a year and a half ago, we had a discussion, I believe it was about a similar item, or at least from a similar department. But the issue is this form for purchase justification. And it says on the form, a no bid, no quote purchase must meet one of the following criteria, RI General Laws 4555-8. And there are 6 categories, of which on this form, the 6th one is checked off. However, that category, preferred, is absolutely not in keeping with the Rhode Island General Law. It is not a reason why any municipality, any municipal department can sole source purchase something just because it's preferred. You can't do it. It is illegal. So I realize it's not a lot of money here, but we were assured when we had this discussion a year and a half ago that this form would be revised and a superseded form would be sent out to all of the schools and the entire district so that we would not see something like this again. And here it is again with that same category, and it's, you can't do it. If it truly was one of a kind, or a compatibility issue, or only one vendor, that would be one, but you cannot buy something just because it's preferred.
Can I just say that this is Mr. Dunn, this is a different, we did update that form, so this form is a different form. It has more categories.
But I'm sure that this category would be removed. This is not in keeping with the state law.
The one of a kind?
Preferred.
No, preferred, the category that's checked off, preferred.
Oh,
I mean, if I could jump in, I think that this might easily fit in one of the other categories from the justification that's listed. So what this is explaining is that this particular product has been reliable and seamlessly interfaces with our Aspen system, which may very well make it actually fit more with, the compatibility or unique design section. So, I mean, I see your point.
May I ask Mr. Waterman to talk a little bit about
Sure.
the overseas site?
So, and just, the objection, I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's not necessarily that you have an issue with the reason given other than that the preferred box shouldn't be there to begin with. It would need to be one of the other 5 choices.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So, thank you, Dr. Hubbard, for stating, I did use the new form, and I thought I was okay in using the new form and using that box. So, right. I didn't want to say it's one of a kind because there are other products out there. We actually moved from a competitor because this current product, and this was before my joining this department, we moved from a competitor to School Messenger. So I don't want to say I wasn't sure, but I didn't want to check one of a kind because there are other products out there, but they don't have all of the features that School Messenger has as far as the integration, as far as the expansion of this winter. We rolled out the text messaging. We can do social media integration as we expand. So I was torn on this, but I thought preferred was the better category to choose.
But I think if you have an item that you want to buy, whether it's a computer or a truck or software, and you have 10 different things that it has to have, including the features that you're looking for, and this is the only one, then it is sole source because it is one of a kind.
Okay.
Nobody else has all of those features. They might have most of them, but if you need all of them, that's one of a kind.
Okay.
But we shouldn't have preferred on this form, and it
So
should
should
be,
the box be sole source?
yes.
Well, we have to look
Well,
sort of
all
look back to
of
the
these are sole source.
statute.
Yeah.
All
Right.
of these are sole source reasons. It could be sole source because it's one of a kind, sole source because of compatibility, like Apple versus.
And it wasn't it was a project we worked on last year. So I did move on this product last year. I renewed it at a cost of just under $5,000. I asked them this year to give me multi-year pricing. I was able to get a really good savings by signing a multi-year contract, which then made me have to bring it to school committee for approval because it was over the $5,000 threshold. So I can certainly change the form if that's what needs to happen.
Do you have some time?
Yes, this does not renew until June 30th, so we certainly do have time. I'm going to have a number of products coming forward, so I was just trying to space them out a little bit.
I think this what happened is the experience with this was that every time we went to use one of a kind, the argument was that it's really not. That it's not, that it's not one of a kind because there are programs, just thinking in terms of programs that from my department, that we have, they say a math program, an adaptive program, that there's more than one, but the one that we want has certain qualities that we like better, but there are still products that are similar. So we kept running into trouble with one of a kind. So I think that's where the preferred came from. But if you're saying that that's illegal.
Well, I think then it would make more sense that not to use the form and just say, well, we've got these different bids, and this may be a little more expensive, but, I mean, we don't always pick the lowest bid per se, if there's good reasons for taking it.
It doesn't have a bid. That's what it is.
Now,
That's
just
the thing,
to throw
because it's
something
sole source.
out there, what the statute says, and it allows for flexibility, it does, it's just a matter of sort of tightening up our form. It's not that we're way out in left field here. The statute says that a contract may be awarded for a supply, service, or construction item without competition when, under published regulations, the purchasing officer determines in writing that there is only one source for the required supply, service, or construction item. And that presumably, we'd have to check with our legal counsel, but presumably that could be, there is only one source because our service requires the following things, that it integrates with Aspen, da-da-da-da-da, and this may very well fit that justification. I think it's just a matter of tightening up our form, but I agree with Ms. McGovern that you can't simply say, oh, this is a preferred vendor. We need to justify it as being sole source on the basis of existing published regulations that we use to determine that this is the only place that we can get what we need from.
Okay, as long as when we come through with something that's one of a kind, we don't get arguments
Pleases the
on it.
committee, I'm fine
Well,
putting
one
this on the
source
next
is one.
agenda, and we'll have Mary and Carol both on hand to speak to this. This is their area.
Yes.
And I would have a question so that I'm not up here at a future meeting
Yeah.
facing the same scrutiny. In a future meeting, I will be proposing that we sign a new web page vendor. So it's very similar software in that it's only going to be whoever is selected. This is a committee work that we've been working on for about a month now, where we've asked for the web page coordinators' input. We've asked for principles of selecting a new district-wide web source. So I would just like clarification when we get to that of because it's only going to be one company we select, but it's not something that we can put out to bid because they are the sole source, even though we consider others.
So it's really something we'll be working with our legal counsel with, and we'll straighten out. Now, the question is, do you want to table this item until we get
Can
one
I ask you
adjusted?
a question?
Yeah, sure.
So on that, I would suggest that what your committee is doing is creating a specification for the web page, and in doing so, all the other web providers are being eliminated from competition because of the needs of the district that are determined by this committee. So
Okay.
it's a sole source, because they're the only ones who can
Try
provide
that. Okay.
what you developed as a spec.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a little bit of semantics. So if you want to do a motion to table.
Motion to table.
Okay, so a motion to table by Mr. McGovern, seconded by Mr. Jones. Any discussion on the motion to table this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So that passes unanimously. Next we have reached unfinished business. We don't have Mrs. King here really. Any questions on the 2016-17 school budget? 2017-2018 school budget?
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
So I appreciate Mr. August coming. Too bad he left. Not quite sure he correctly interpreted what I was asking the Charter Commission for, so I guess we'll talk more with the town council. I understand philosophically what he's saying. I disagree that the town of North Kingstown doesn't have the ability to change archaic language in its own charter to eliminate things like the 53rd day after the harvest moon rises. So,
But almost.
and I think town of North Kingstown has the ability within larger statutory things to push our own internal budget timelines back. So maybe Mr. August doesn't quite understand what our intent was. And I will also say, while the last Charter Commission may have looked at a lot of things, I don't quite think their schedule and stuff was quite as comprehensive as maybe the Commission thought it was. So I'm hoping we can have a fruitful dialogue with our town council counterparts about maybe being more specific and tailored what we would like the Charter Commission to look at. I would also say, to the superintendent, if again in your discussions with your counterpart, the town manager, and your counterpart with the town council chair, that we still don't have an audit or scheduled for an audit, and it is now almost April 1st. So maybe Mr. August can look at what the Auditor General thinks about that too. So sometimes what the Auditor General says and what reality is aren't two of the same things. So maybe if we could get updates on that, Phil, when you're
We will
talking with
definitely have an
the
update
town
for you at
manager,
our next school
we
committee
could
meeting.
do that. Maybe at April 10th, that might come up. And then also, since we're not going to meet till April 11th, I think we talked about engaging with RIDE sometime after April 1st on holding the RIDE to reporting out on the charter school reports, I think are due April 1st, so we can keep refining our budget projections.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else? Next item, CIP bond, existing bond, and future bonds, and discussion on that. Then we have reached the end of our agenda, and I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. Hopkins, second by Mrs. McGovern. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you folks for coming.
Everybody.